Okay, this is a demo of the file tree Emacs package, and this is a package I wrote a while ago. The description of the package is file tree view manipulation package, which is kind of a cryptic description. The package basically provides a set of interactive tools to help you quickly find a file, um, or find information in a file, or find information that's associated with the file. And it uses helps you visualize a directory structure to give you some context about where files are to help you in finding that file. So, okay. Packages that are used for this demo, I'm using org tree slide, which is a nice package for creating slides out of org mode bullets. And I'm running this in an Emacs sandbox using the Emacs sandbox script by Alpha Papa. Okay, so I'm going to go through some use cases, basically ways that I use this package to help um, help give some context for how these tools could be used by other users. So the first use case is basically as a wrapper for recentf or recent files. This is something that I used to use before I was writing the package and before I wrote this package, and it was really the motivation for creating this package. So the background is um, so if we're using recentf, we can use recentf open files, and it gives us a list of our recent files, and so we can find a recent file that we want to open. For example, if I go down and I see my .emacs file, I can go and click on this, or I can just hit the number that's listed next to it. And this is great, but one, it's hard to visually parse this. So finding the file that I want is kind of hard to do. And it's not very scalable. So it works okay if you have 20 files or so. But if you have hundreds of files, then this becomes very, very, very hard to use. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a way to get that same type of functionality, but with a really large set of recent files. And so um, for the file tree package, I usually set my maximum number of saved items for recentf to 500 so that I can have a very large number of files. For this demo, I don't have that many recent files, but in my normal setup, I have hundreds of recent files. Okay, so what would this look like for file tree? So if we use the file tree show recent files command, then we get those same recent files shown in a directory structure, in a directory tree structure. So one, this makes it easier to figure out where the files are and what the files are. So just visually, there's more information that you can get. But then we have a number of tools that help us beyond that. So navigation, you can use the up down arrow keys, or you can use J and K if you like Vim bindings. And in addition to going up and down, you can also jump by branch. And so that's with the space key to go down by branch, or the tab key to go up by branch. Now, once you go to a particular file, if you hit return on it, then it'll open the file. Now you can look at this tree with a number of different views. So first, right now we're showing the full tree, but you can limit the depth that's shown. So the number keys are tied to the depth. So if you hit 1, then it just shows us the root nodes. And if you hit 2, then it shows 1 level deeper. 3, one level deeper, and so on. And if you hit 0, then it shows you the full depth of the tree. And remember, this is only for the files that are in our file list, which right now are the recent files. Now there are a couple of other views. So first, for the directories, we use by default a compact directory representation. So here, rather than break out users, Ketan, My Sandbox, and FileTree Demo, because we have no files under, say, users and only one subdirectory, we use a compact representation to save space and show more files. But if you do the / here, it'll toggle between an expanded view and a compact view. And so normally you want to use the compact view, but later I'll show reasons why you might want to use the expanded view temporarily. And if you like to see file icons, then the semicolon will enable all the icons, will enable icons using all the icons. I don't usually use it because as you get a large number of files, it can start to get, updates can start to get a little bit sluggish. But if you like them, then you can use those. Now the main power, and I'm going to close this for a second. The main power from the package is really the ability to filter and expand from this file list. And so we have our list of 18 files right now, but there are a number of ways in which we can either filter files or we can expand files. So the first way you can do it is if we hit return on a directory, then it narrows to that directory. And so here we narrowed to just the user directory. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is when we did that, the stack size increased to 2. And so whenever we do a filtering or expansion operation, the updated file list is put on a stack. And what this lets us do is we can undo by popping off of this stack. And the key to undo is B for back. And so here, if we do B, then we go back to our original file list, and our stack size is back to 1. Now, in addition to narrowing a particular subdirectory, we can also drop a file or directory, and that's done with the X key. So here, if I hit X, then that user directory is dropped. Instead of narrowing to that directory, we have eliminated that directory. And you can do the same thing with files. So for example, if I did X here, then that file disappears as well. And again, this is all put on the stack, so we can do back, and we're back to our original set. We can also, so in addition to dropping, the next thing we can do is we can filter. So we can filter by regular expression. So the key for doing that is F, and then you can do shortcuts. And so there are some built-in shortcuts. For example, for Python files, we hit P, and so this gives us just the Python files. Or if I do FE, then I get just the Emacs files. But you can do any regular expression. So if you do F, return, and then you type, let's say, EX, then you just get files that have EX in them. Now, in addition to the built-in shortcuts, you can actually define your own. So here, I make this a little bit smaller so it's easier to see. There's a function called FileTree configure default file types, and you can overwrite this, or you can create your own and call it. And basically what it does is it sets up a bunch of shortcuts. And so here this line sets up a shortcut for Python. So Python is the name of the filter. the shortcut key is P. Here's the regular expression for Python files, and here's the face if you want to define a face so that the files in the file tree show up with that face and are easily recognizable. And you can either add to this this list, or you can just create your own, or you can eliminate it if you don't like the faces that are currently there. Now, in addition to filtering by file type or regular expression, you can also expand that way. So let's say that I'm in, let's say I've narrowed to my projects, and then I go to my site, and now I want to look at all of the Python files under here. And so if I do E for expand, and I do P for Python, then it'll show me all the Python files in that directory. Now, if I do capital E and then P, then it'll recursively look for Python files in that directory. And if you wanted to find all files, not just Python files, under this directory, then you could do just E, capital E, return, and then just return for the regular expression, and then this will find all the files. Now, one of the things here is really for this directory, I might be interested not just in the analytics subdirectory, but I might be interested in all the files under my site. And so how do we expand that? Well, this is where we would use the non-compact representation. So if I do a slash /, then I can now see the directory structure where each line shows a subdirectory. And so now I can go up to my site, and I can do capital E, P, and now it shows me all of the Python files under this directory. And so now I can do / again, and I have the compact view. And now you can use the number keys to kind of take a look at this and look at, if you type in 3, then we see, okay, here are the subdirectories under my site that I have. And back to 0, and we see all the files again. Okay, so now in addition to this regular expression type of filtering, we also have another type of filtering that's Helm-based search. And so I like to use the regular expression type filtering if I want to quickly narrow down to a particular file type, or there's kind of a quick filtering operation that I need to do. But for more general searches, the Helm-based search can be nice, where you don't exactly know what you're looking for. So, for example, with the Helm-based search, you get some interactive feedback. So the key for that is S, and then you can type a pattern. So let's say that I'm typing, I want to look at all the view files here. So I say view, and now it shows me all the files. And if I go back, then we're back to where we were. And so after you type what you, after you get the filter that you want, then you just hit return, and now you have that filter. And the stack, and these files were added on the stack. So you can again undo that. Now, in addition to just popping off the stack, there are a couple other operations that you can use with the stack. So let's say that again I'm in my site, and I have all these test files, and I'm not really interested in those. So how can I get rid of them? Well, I can first just search for test. Okay, and so now I've only found the test files. And now on the stack, I had all the files, including the test files, and then after that I had just the test files. And there's a subtraction operation with the minus key, which will subtract the last 2 entries in the stack. And so if I do minus, now I have all those files without the test file. There's also a union operation, which will do a union of the last two um, stack entries, and that's using the plus key. And so if I do plus, then I've added the last two entries, which brings me basically back to where we were. And the plus operation isn't really useful in what I've described so far, but it can be useful if you combine it with loading and saving file lists, which I'll talk about next. Okay. Okay, so in addition to the recent files, there are other ways that you can populate the file list that gets shown in FileTree. So some ways are you can take a list of the current buffers, and so if I do FileTree, show current buffers, then I get a list of the current buffers. I must have. You can also do a file. So let's say I am in my Emacs file, and now I do FileTree show current directory recursively. Then it shows me all the files in my in the same directory as Emacs, and kind of my .emacs file along with, and this does it recursively. Okay, and then all the other operations that we did in the last use case, you can still use here. So you can still do all the filtering operations, so FP or FE, and you can do the expansion operations and all of that. Another thing you can do is you can save and then load file lists that, from earlier. So let's say that I am looking at my projects and I look at this project, and first I just I do an expand P, and I have all the and I get all, and I filter by Python files, and I get all the Python files for this project, and I have 62 files. Now what I can do is I can do S, capital S for save, and then it gives me a Helm-based interface for coming up with the name. And so I want to choose new entry, and then I type in the name of the entry. So I'll say filter py. Okay, and now if I ever want to load, then that's one of the, I could load recent F, or I can load filter py. And now one of the things is that when you load this way, it gets added to the stack. And so this is a way to combine file list as well. So you can then use the union operation if you. Another use case is for searching within a file. And so one of the things that sometimes I'll do is I've written a function recently, but rather than think about exactly where I wrote that and find that file, I might just want to do a quick search. And so if you hit G for grep, you can type, let's say, def time. Okay, there's no match. Oh. So we'll do this. EP. Okay, so let's say that I search def time. Then it shows me, okay, here are all the matches from my current file list, and then I can click on that and the file opens up. So this is a quick way to sometimes find information. Okay, so for the last use case, file notes, this is a little bit of a different use case from the previous use cases. here the tool gives you the capability to have notes associated with specific files. So, for example, let's say that we go to this file and we open it. There is a keyboard binding or a key binding that I use to open up the notes, and so I'll do Control C return, and it opens up a note in the side window, and I can type in note here, test note, and then I do the key binding again, Control C return, and that note has been stored. Now if I pull up the notes for this file again, then that note shows up. Now that note file is actually by default a single global note file, and we dynamically narrow it based on the file that we're trying to get information or notes about. You can also use a local project note file. You just need to put the appropriately named note file in the project root directory. Then FileTree will automatically use that rather than the global note file for that project. Now I was thinking about making this actually a separate small package, but I left it as part of FileTree because there's integration with FileTree. So if we, I'll close this note, and now let's say that I open my FileTree, and I'm gonna just close the presentation for a second. With the I key, you can show notes in the side window dynamically as you navigate through the FileTree. So as I'm going down, it'll show notes in the side window. And if there's no note, then you'll have an indication that there's no note. Now there are a few ways that I use this. So one way is, let's say I look at my documents here. Oops. So when I'm looking at papers that I've downloaded, for example, a lot of times the names are pretty cryptic. And so this gives me the option to have the name of the paper, maybe notes that I've taken for the paper, show up on the in the side window as I'm going through the files. So that's useful. I also for some projects where there's a single file that has a lot of that has a core development code in, I will sometimes use the note file to keep to-do lists. And so, for example, for FileTree, I had a long note that had a list of all the to-do items that I had, and I tracked them there. Another way I use it sometimes will be if there's some code that I'm having some trouble understanding, and as I figure out how a certain function works, I might jot down a note to help me understand next time I open up the file. And so the integration here is that the notes show up on the side window as you go through files in FileTree. And so that's all the use cases. I hope those made sense and that you find this useful as well. The package is available on Melpa, and if you run into any issues, please file an issue on my GitHub for FileTree. And that's it. Thanks.